I've watched him fail when it's a high-pressure situation so many times.
Imagine somebody walking up to a wall and completely slamming their head into it repeatedly.
We can cut that bit, right? That's fine. We'll just cut that bit out. Hello and welcome to the jungle with me, Medic, Cubby, and Broxah. Today we'll be talking about the LCS, Faker, and mental health. But first, we're going to dive straight on into the season finals. And what a season finals it was. Actually, wait, I should firstly say, Ginny's not here this week. We're sorry that she's not here this week. She will be back in the future, but I think she just has other commitments this week. I'm sure she's doing something more interesting than sitting and talking to three middle-aged white men about a computer game, you know?
Wow. You are...
Is there something more interesting than that?
You're not
Probably
hiding
not.
us up
This is
too
my
well
favorite
right now,
thing.
I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, I love our conversations, but three middle-aged white men on a podcast is kind of like... It's just stereotypical podcast, right?
It sounds like a meme almost, yeah.
Yeah, it does.
So, what do you want to talk about? Season finals, that's what you said? I mean, I got a bit
Yeah,
confused
season
there.
finals, let's do it. So where do we want to start? Should we hit up Fnatic versus BDS to kick things off? It was a pretty one-sided series, Broxah.
Yeah, I think it was an interesting series, right? Because ultimately, in some ways, I don't think BDS were completely outclassed. Like the Fnatic winning 3-0 is fairly convincing, but it's like usually in the early game and the start of mid game, it would be pretty close, at least in game 1 and 2. Game 3 was a different story with Razork pulling out the Nidalee. Somehow that usually leads to him just stomping everybody. But game 1 and 2, it was close. But then when it comes to team fights, Fnatic is just always one step ahead. It feels like they always win those key fights, whether it's about the Drake setups or fighting around mid. I think game 2 was a lot closer than a lot of people had anticipated and than what a lot of people remember, mostly because while Fnatic, as usual, won a team fight and got an advantage, they actually ended up getting caught, which is an issue they're having, and that I would be very worried about as a Fnatic fan, because they randomly get caught all the time, and they overforce and they're over-aggressive, and in that case it led to Razork and Jun dying, BDS forcing Baron, and then randomly Noah stands over the wall, steals it with Misfortune ult, and they instantly win anyways. and
Yep.
I think some of the missteps and over-aggression that was shown didn't end up mattering as much against BDS as it could have against a slightly better team. But then the question is, like, who's even going to be a better team? G2, well, they just lost to Mad Lions, so I don't even know at this point.
I find that game 2 interesting from BDS specifically, because I actually feel like they had everything cooked up to win. Like, for me, they had a map that can play really fast. They ended up getting Adam pretty far ahead, because he had a really nice TP bot to defend the dive. I think he picked up 2 kills and got back, but they didn't snowball this one like fast enough. I do think the Humanoid had a really nice game and a really nice series in this one specifically, but like this was a game for me where if you have a Camille that's ahead like that and you have Ziggs Lucian, like you need to, as BDS, find a way to actually like bust out and break open this map. And instead what ended up happening is like, I forget the exact scenario. I'm trying to like kind of scroll through the VOD to see what happened, but pretty much Adam was forced off of like a triple wave.
Yeah.
Because they went for a bot dive right before it. And I feel like if they didn't go for this bot dive and they were actually hovering top like correctly, Adam has like he's ahead for the rest of the game, and they can just bust out in the sides really fast and start taking everything away from Fnatic. And the fact that Fnatic, like I know that the dive was a little bit sloppy, but like they killed the Camille, they got him off the triple wave. All of a sudden, like Oscar can play for the rest of the game, and then you get outscaled drastically this game, like from the BDS perspective, playing into like Brand, Azir, and then a Braum that can really hold the front line against a team that has to go in. So also like the Ziggs ults, just like we're not synced up all the time with Camille. Like there were a couple instances where there was like one pick they missed around like their own blue buff where Sejuani and Leona led, where like Camille had R up and the opponent had no flash. So if you start with Camille R, like they just die. I think it was Razork was down flash. Like there's still like some really weird synergy things from BDS that I feel like we're not plaguing them earlier in the season. And while at times I feel like they're starting to pick things up and put things together, like there are some basic fundamentals for me that are just not there that are going to prevent them, for me, from probably making
I
Worlds.
think it's also just a very difficult meta for BDS right now. They've always been known for these strong front-to-back team fighting comps, whether it was with Adam on a tank or one of his gods carry champs back in the day. But right now, with AD carries being so strong, and like you said, them playing these kind of team comps that really rely on them playing faster and using the leads more aggressively, I think that puts them in a really tricky situation, because even at their absolute best, they were never a super impressive early game team in my opinion. Like they've never been that great at snowballing. Usually BDS is the team that will just scale and outclass you in team fights and win the game off of it. But all of a sudden, when you're against a team like Fnatic that is better than you in team fights, that win con doesn't exist anymore. And I feel like they're kind of gonna need to try a little bit harder to recenter themselves and find a new identity in order to be successful, because I'm not sure or convinced about their current approach to drafting. I'm not particularly convinced about them playing AD carries in mid or in top, and I think they're gonna need to try to think one step ahead, or they're always gonna be so behind that, like you said, they're probably not gonna make it to Worlds.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues for BDS is in these comps, Ice had less agency than he usually has. All right, and so often they've been very reliant on him in late game team fights. I'm talking about in late game team fights to pop off, right? Like the amount of times it was Nuke and Ice taking on 5 players, cleaning it up, managing to turn the game around in BDS's favor. And here, like, Ice has MF, Ziggs, and Jhin. And I'm sorry, if you give me those 3 AD carries in a late game team fight, MF can do a lot of damage, but she needs the setup. Usually we see him like Zeri, Jinx, these things that have that powerful front to back as Brox is talking about, and it unlocks him a lot more on the map. So one of the problems I noticed, and you kind of hit on it, Cubby, was in game 2, Camille was 4-0, and they start shadowing bot side, as you say. It's like they haven't practiced, or they haven't shown us on stage the experience in playing around someone other than Ice to really carry the game. Sometimes they play through Nuke as well, like mid to bot. But it's been a while since we saw them like directly play through Adam. And I think Shale in that game kind of just reverted to the norm of, let's see if we can get Ice a little bit of a lead. Let's see if we can make sure that our bot side is doing well, because later on, they're the ones that often are our carries.
When I was killing over the VODs, I saw Ice on Ziggs and I was like, really?
Yeah.
Like,
And Jhin,
we're busting that out? Yeah.
And I think you can still play that front to back if you want to. Like, I agree that like multiple AD carries does tend to be the best way, or the most optimal way we see League of Legends being played, at least in Europe right now. But you can still just look for a front to back and fall a couple of 1,000 goal behind. Fnatic lost games from 8,000 goal behind against G2 in the finals. Now, I'm not saying BDS is G2 level, right? But you can just look for a more traditional composition and play to your strengths. This may have been BDS testing the waters a little bit, but if you look at the comps, like, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like they're kind of stock standard, but without that hyper carry that we're so used to seeing Ice actually fall down to.
I don't know. It's just tricky, right? Because Jinx definitely is not as strong as she used to be. Siri can be pretty powerful, but isn't in the same spot, and often I honestly would.
Right, Zeri was banned every game by Fnatic here, which isn't too surprising.
Which isn't too surprising. Yeah. And it's like, even if it's open, it's also a fairly strong solo laner, and times have changed quite a bit. And I don't know, that they're just in such a tricky position where they seem so one-dimensional, with, like you said, Ice having to be the main guy to carry, but suddenly they're having a really hard time playing towards him and setting him up for success. And I think they need to find a different way to set him up for success instead of putting him on supportive champions like they did this series, because that certainly is just not going to work. Like, nobody else can step up and take matters into own hands like we've seen. And this time it was Jhin 6 Misfortune. Earlier we saw him playing some Ashe. Like, I don't know, at the very least find a middle ground and go for a Kai'Sa or maybe an Ezreal, like something with some kind of carry potential.
Yeah, I think that it, like, part of it is, I mean, this team always plays through Ice, but also I will say I have some beef right now. I think Lilias are being picked up like way too early in draft. And game 3 was a good example of, Like when Lilia is taking early, you can't take a lot of answers into it because that champion's extremely vulnerable to pick. If she doesn't get going in a fight and you take her out, it's nothing. Like I like the theory of the game 3 draft from BDS. I do. Like we've seen Orange Jin beat Renekton like as you go throughout the game, but you're playing against like you give the enemy team 4 picks to counter Lilia when you pick it there, and it just felt like Sheo could like, A, never get rolling, and B, I partly feel like Sheo is best when he's on utility because yes, that enables you to further play through ice, right? So like even that early in draft, you're losing your identity of the team. And I don't think their game 3 draft is bad by any means, but I don't think it's a good draft for BDS, right? So yeah, it was really interesting because I feel like BDS, like their struggles for me haven't been an identity crisis until now, and I appreciate that they're trying to go back to the drawing board because I do feel like this team was having issues, but I didn't love their solutions.
I agree with that. We saw them like kind of try flex at the start of, it was either the start of the year or the start of summer. I'm pretty sure it was the start of the year with more of these AP jungles as well. I remember we saw some Karthus out of Sheo as well, and it didn't really work. So I think there's 2 schools of thought on how BDS played this weekend. One, I think Fnatic is generally the better team, so I expected them to win anyway. So that's like out. Like they were expected to lose this. Maybe they could have put up more of a fight. And you can either say they were experimenting with their drafts. They accepted that maybe they lose the series, even though they're obviously trying their hardest to win. But they were trying something else out to see if they could enact it on stage. Or you say they really don't have an identity right now, and they're not quite sure how to make this work as a team, right? Those are, I think, kind of the 2 options. I err on the side of we've seen them being like failing for a while, so I expect that they just can't quite get the cogs to work together right now. And part of that is Labrov and Sheo not teaming up as well as they used to do. Part of that is Ice not having the hyper carries to play. Part of that is Adam not having the impact that he was part of the core of BDS making Worlds last year. It was his impact in top lane. Like he made a name for himself in Korea because of the Gods Champions. So it feels like everyone on this team has kind of just taken a step regressively, and they can't quite work out exactly how they want to gel as a unit on this patch, which is difficult because the whole of playoffs is on this patch. Oh, the whole of season final, sorry, is on this patch. And Triple AD is likely going to be a theme we see for the rest of season finals in Europe. So if you can't now make it work up against SK this weekend, then you're out and you're not even going to Worlds.
I think the Adam point is definitely a big one, because when they were at their best last year, Adam was at times considered an MVP candidate, and at the very least, at worst, the top 3 top lane in Europe. But right now, like he just unfortunately hasn't been much of a threat, and you know, like no one can make an argument for him being top 3 anymore. So that definitely is a very, very big problem as well. And him not being able to consistently get early game advantages and roam down to help the team like he used to do is also hurting them really, really massively. I think for them it can really go 2 different ways now. Like either they just mental boom and explode and they're gone, or they can use this as a huge learning lesson, because I do think that in a lot of ways, both individually, but also when it comes to how they approach team fights, how they draft and more, there's so much to take away, and they could legitimately use the next week to become such a good team if they just take the right steps. So we'll see.
We'll see. I think that the trend for me has been downwards, and if by this point they haven't been able to correct some of those issues, it would be an incredible turnaround if they managed to, but I'm less expectant of the turnaround, right? What I am expectant of, though, is anyone watching this right now to like and subscribe and leave a comment. Maybe ask us something about our favorite colors, or our favorite teams, or our favorite champions, or anything you want. Leave the comments down below and we'll get round to them in the next episode of The Jungle. On the other side of the rift, there was Fnatic. And after getting demolished by G2 in the second 20 minutes of every single game at finals, they looked a lot more solid against BDS. And the proviso coming out here obviously is BDS are not G2. BDS's mid-game is not G2's mid-game. So obviously, Fnatic should look better. But I think there's some positive signs from this team.
Well, I feel like, you know, right at the start of this episode, I did mention some of the ups and downs, and I think ultimately, while this series in some ways was a positive for Fnatic, I am gonna continue being worried about the over-aggression, and the way they snowball and win games, really, because I feel like from what we've seen the past couple of weeks, it's like two scenarios. One is get Italy and Razork just stomps and carries the game, but if that option is not available, and often Italy's banned, so it's not, they need to just get to a point where they can win team fights, because even if they get an early game advantage, you can't fully rely on them just using macro to consistently get drakes and take towers and win off of that alone. And the team fighting is very solid. Like, it probably, I don't want to say the best in Europe. I think that's a close call right now, especially with the G2 Mad series in mind that had some spicy team fights too, but they're up there. But I want to see more than just good team fighting for them.
Yeah, I was happier with Fnatic going through the tape in this series. There was like one or two really weird scenarios though with how they played out a drag setup, like a couple side lanes. I feel like sometimes Razork and June deploy to the wrong side of the map. Like specifically, there was an instance in the first game where like Oscar had a dragon flank set up around the third dragon, where he like shoved out bot lane. They're on red side this game, and he had two control wards that he was sitting on. And his side of the map, I'm like, okay, this is like really good. If Fnatic just get mid prio, they sit in river, like they completely cut off BDS from walking in, and like their comp was really good for cannon flanks that game. And then Razork and June like deploy top, like with 45 seconds left before Dragon's up. So like I'm expecting whoever's top to, like it was Nuke at the time, to base and reset and then go to the Dragon, right? So now because they walk top, they have to walk all the way back down. They don't take control of the vision. And like Oscar hangs around too long, like gets picked, and then BDS like win the map out from that in the Dragon, right? I'm looking at this and I'm like, man, like if Oscar gets flamed for this, like I would be so tilted if I'm Oscar in this scenario. Like I did my job and my team just like went to the wrong side of the map. We dropped the objective, and I feel like that's like one of the instances where I'm like, okay, Fnatic's just hunting for a kill on a timer that's just not going to be there. And I do think this team still suffers from that at times. I also feel like I can't put my like hand on if I think Noah's playing like good enough to carry, or if he's just still kind of like being there and making decisions. Because I feel like his Ezreal's decent, but I like he team fights well, but I can still like see moments where he's not being as aggressive as he could be on this champion. And I feel like a lot of the team like creates chaos around him, so sometimes his job's just to play janitor, and that's fine. But I do like when people are able to, you know, play Ezreal to the max. I don't know if we saw that from Noah yet in this one. So I think Fnatic makes Worlds, but I don't have them favored to win still. I feel like G2 still beats them when they find them, whatever they do in the bracket.
Yeah, I think it's always hard to like look past G2 just because of the year they've had and you know the seasons they've had, even though they did lose to MDK, and we'll get onto that in just a moment's time. I think the point about Noah is really interesting because I have no faith in Noah only because I've watched him fail when it's a high pressure situation so many times. And you talk about him like not being as aggressive as he can on Ezreal. I understand that from a psychology point of view. He was aggressive on Ezreal in the finals, and he died two of the 3 games, losing them the game. Like, I can 100% understand in your head, you're like, maybe I don't E forward here because they're going to kill me. But you need to be able to turn that switch off, right? You have to be able to say, I am going to play to the maximum of my champion if I'm going to win in the high pressure games, in the important games, right? Whether that be against G2 in a final, whether that be against, you know, LPL and LCK representatives at Worlds. Noah needs to find that switch. And I think this series, the first game he played relatively well. The other 2 games really weren't about him that much. Humanoid had a really good series in my mind, as did Razork. And then you had the supporting cast of Noah, Oscar, and Ninja, and who also, they all played well. They didn't, no one shone out of those, right? So I think for Fnatic, as you say, they look like a solid team. I could see them winning the split, or the year, I guess. I hate the naming conventions, man. We should just be like the LCS and call it the championship and not have a summer playoffs. Anyway, I mean, I can see...
They got their wish. They got MDK.
Yeah.
They get to delay G2, right?
Well, I can see them beating MDK, right? And then I can see them beating whoever they meet in the final, assuming G2 and MDK stay at the level they're at. I think Fnatic were the most solid of the those three teams that we saw this weekend. Part of that is I don't think BDS were good this weekend, so it's much easier to look solid. But there were stable games until 24 minutes, and then Fnatic started winning, and they didn't stop winning. And that is a breath of fresh air for me as a long-time watcher of Fnatic.
I don't know. I think Fnatic it's such an interesting team because I think it was our last episode where we talked a lot about them and that got destroyed by G2 and times were tough, but it's hard, right? Because usually they look so good against any team that's not G2, and even against G2 at the end of Summer Split, not the final, but before that they had a good series where they beat them. And I think for them, they definitely have a lot of moments where they look good, just like all other teams in Europe. They have a lot of hiccups and issues that they need to work on, and I'm definitely not sold on them in international play right now, but I mean, currently it seems like as long as the G2 mental block is not there, they're going to find a way to beat more or less anyone else. And I don't know, if everything goes the way most people expect it, so it's going to be a G2 Fnatic final, and that's going to be the ultimate mental test.
Yeah. And the problem is, we have 3 games of tape to evaluate this team on again, right? Like, we can evaluate them from what's happened over the rest of the year, but in the end, like, people are, you go into a series and you're like, oh, are Fnatic going to fix their mid-game woes? It's like, it looks like it, but they played 3 games against BDS. Like, fuck do I know? You know?
Yep.
I shouldn't say that, considering our podcast is about making assumptions off those 3 games. Yeah, we can cut that bit, right? That's fine. We just cut that bit out. Moving on, G2 versus MDK. What a fucking banger. What a great series we had.
Yeah, we're really trying not to like clickbait by having the second, right?
Oh,
we're
it's
doing our
more
best.
that it wasn't written specifically, and I'm not Ginny, so I don't think about what's better to start with.
We're not Gen Z brained enough.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of interested in like your guys' take first, obviously. Like, just I know that there's been a lot of talk about like, the G2 meta, and I feel that, but I just felt like there were some members of G2 that like had some just really bad games. Like the Nocturne game from Yike was terrible, and there were a lot of like unfortunate events that led to that game being terrible in the early game, but like that was bad. I also think that the drafts that G2 are going for are putting themselves, they're really constricting a lot of the timers they can play on. Like whether it's Kennen flanks or playing with Draven. I mean, like I love Hansama Draven. Like he's really good at it. I kind of despise Draven though as a champion. Like I just feel like you're so limited in what you can do, and I don't get why G2 are playing like all these super early game comps and then finding ways to not execute / throw early game leads, and they have to like play their way back into the game, which they're doing rather miraculously. They should not have won that game 3, right? Like this, by all intents and purposes, like could have went really different. Like for MDK. Like the way they played their way back in with the champs they had was really good. And I know G2's good at this, but I don't get why they're putting themselves on such constricted timers in this meta. I just don't feel like it's necessary.
I definitely would agree with that. I think from a drafting point of view, MDK had a very clear advantage in a lot of these games, which was also a big reason as to why they won. I also think, I mean, the 3-2 scoreline makes it look really close, which, I mean, it was, a lot of the games were close, but like you said, if that game 3 goes differently and MDK wins, which they might as well have, they were literally hitting the G2's Nexus at one point, then it could be an entirely different look and story. What I think was interesting is that while there was disappointments in terms of how G2 approached the series, and while I also think it was a bit sad that they had to get so creative to even come out on top and have a chance of winning some of these games. I think it's kind of cool that MDK is using G2's old creativity and flexibility in draft against them. With Mervin playing literally Lulu, Corgi, Sirius, Smolder, and AD Nidalee top. And you know, being a big reason as to why MDK even were able to contest the series and beat them. I think their meta read was very great, and they were one step ahead in that regard. And then just their team fighting generally was very solid. And of course, sure, in mid and late game they usually had a draft advantage, but at the same time, they were playing incredibly well in terms of both team fighting and macro, and that's something that I didn't expect from them, and I think was great to see. Ultimately, they've stepped up massively.
Yeah, they really have. And they had a boot camp in Madrid since they were knocked out of the summer playoffs. So they've had about 3 weeks. Madrid, as we all know, is also known as the soul of Europe. So basically a Korean boot camp for them over the last few weeks. And it's definitely helped them. I think it's super interesting to see from the G2 side how little priority they put on ADs. Like, they got the Draven a couple of games. They had the Kalista game 1, 2 Kai'Sa games, but there was no AD top. There was no AD mid. Like, Caps is a lot of people are going to call him a Tristana merchant now because Caps was bad this series. Like, he had, I think, first game and first half of the second game, he was pretty good. And then all you have to do is look at the last game when Mirwin is chased away on the Nidalee, is at 200 HP, and Caps dives him under tower. And then Mickey follows him, and it's like, this is not the G2 that we know of in Europe, right? Like, it is the G2 of the last couple of months. Like, I'm not trying to say they've always been good, not trying to do revisionist history. But of the last couple of years, G2 is the team that understands when to back out of a fight, when to accept that they've won a fight even if they haven't killed someone on the enemy team, and how to play the mid-late game, right? Like, you have push in mid, you can just move over to the Dragon. Who cares that Mirwin escaped burning his flash at 200 HP? He's AD Nidalee. It's not like he's going to heal himself back up to full HP and chuck a spear over the wall. So I think that was the big thing for me with G2 here is odd drafts where they often also drafted losing lanes. Like, bot lane was pushed in every single game. Mid lane Caps was often getting pushed down under his tower early on, and big credit to Friskawi. I think Friskawi did a very good job of keeping Caps under wraps, and part of that I think is Caps playing awfully, but also like Friskawi's laning was very solid. And then Mirwin was just winning top. Like, the only game Mirwin didn't really have an impact was the fucking Lulu game, and that's because neither of those top laners had an impact in that game, right? They were both like 1-1 and 0 at 25 minutes. So
funny thing about the Lulu, I actually saw this earlier in the year with Challengers League because we have Fearless Draft. Mm-hmm. And we've got a player, Jenkins, who's known for his Kennen. He played in LCS briefly. He played Lulu in the Kennen, and it was Surdy's Kennen. And he got like 3 or 4 kills in lane. But that champ is so useless as a gold, man. If you play it up there, like, it cannot do anything no matter how big of a lead you get. It was kind of funny seeing it and then watching G2 slingshot that game back.
I kind of like Lulu. I'm just like, Polymorph is an incredible ability. And,
it is.
And into like an Azir and a Kennen and a Vi, like, they jump in. You polymorph before they can get their ults off. That feels pretty fucking good to me, you know?
It's just useless with gold. That's the only that's like the one thing, you know? You just need levels. I have a feeling that the Kennen priority will not be the same the next time that G2 plays. Just a gut feeling, you know?
Well, even throughout the series, it seems like they eventually started trying new things with the Cassandra and the Irelia, but in both of those cases, it didn't really go the way that, BB wanted it. So he was playing Cassandra into Smolder. I think Irelia in Italy is a very spicy one that can go either way, but he got ganked at like level 3 and had a rough start already from that point. So ultimately, both of the solo lanes that usually are very dominant were being shut down and struggling. And I also really don't know why Jisoo didn't try to force Caps onto 80 carries mid one way or the other, because the Tristana is not much of a prior pick anymore after the nerf on this patch, but there's still plenty of options, right? And he's had a lot of success in the past playing stuff like Corki, playing Lucian. There's many different routes you can go. I'm sure he's able to play Israel and slow mid and whatnot as well, but it seems like they were just so set on playing a certain way coming into the series that kind of locked them from a draft point of view and gave MDK the flexibility that the G2 used to have.
I think that question is an important one as well. Is it like, were they locked on a specific style that they thought could beat multiple AD carries? Or were they just not comfortable playing into multiple AD carries? Because I talked to Aragon a little bit about this when we were casting the games. And we both kind of aligned on, they are deliberately picking dive to try and blow up AD carries before the fight starts to see if it works, right? Maybe it worked well in scrims, but when you look at it, you know, Rel, Kalista, Azir, Vi, Cannon, right? That is a, we're going to blow up your squishies, right? Rakan, Kai'Sa, Ahri, Vi, Cannon. That is a, we're going to blow up your squishies. Every game until, I mean, even game 5, they were kind of doing a similar thing. Felt like a, we are going to jump in and try and kill you before you can actually DPS us out of a fight. It didn't work, but I'm wondering if they just come in with that game plan and refuse to move, or they weren't willing to actually play the most bladey carries that we were seeing from MDK.
I think it could definitely be a scrim bait, because from my experience, usually in scrims, I mean, there's no pressure, people are more relaxed, and for that reason, they're also taking more risks and there's more limit testing, which leads to a lot of fights and more deaths. But then suddenly, when you're playing official matches where all these marksmen are playing super cautiously and just get to scale for free, and you know they're actually paying full attention to their character and they don't get caught off guard as much, G2's approach just isn't as efficient any longer. And yeah, I mean, I definitely think it showed. I also think it was crazy aggressive going Irelia in a game 5. Like, that champion literally is not even played anymore, and I think you can take a certain risk when you're up against Nidalee top, sure, but again, all the approaches were just so aggressive to a point that was completely unnecessary, and that really hurt the ability to play the game. And I think that's the worst part of the series, that if my feeling after watching was that if G2 came in more well prepared, and if the drafts had been like fully 50-50 and they were playing on entirely even terms, they would have beat MDK without a doubt. Like, I don't think it would even have been particularly close. And again, you gotta give props to MDK for creating those advantages and for being one step ahead and being so flexible. But yeah, it's kind of brutal how they butchered their own chances from a draft point of view.
I mean, like, my only logical thought is, like, maybe they just thought the boot changes were, like, too much, you know? Like, steel caps kind of got buffed and everything else got nerfed around it. But I don't think that's enough. And yeah, the Irelia pick, like, I don't know the matchups, but I like looking at that draft, like, you're playing Aurelia into Braum, Ahri, Vi. That's really, really, really hard. I feel like if you want to play Aurelia, you just play Jax, which I know Finn said on the broadcast too. And I feel like that would have been a lot easier. But I don't know. I mean, in terms of giving MDK props, I think they deserve all the props in the world for being down 2-1 against G2 in the fashion that they were down 2-1 in that game 3 and bouncing back to win the next 2. Yeah. Like, this is a team that, outside of week 1 and then the final day of regular season where they won 3 games because of the tiebreakers, could not find wins. And then they take a 3-week boot camp, come back, and do this. Like, holy cow. Like, that, I mean, that's a really good sign for this team. Because for me, this is a team that, like, looked boom. I was talking about this podcast. It was like, if I'm Supa, I'd hate playing with this team. It felt like every single fight, he would just get abandoned. And I don't think Supa had the best series by, you know, any means. But just, like, how MDK were able to play with their solo laners and, like, actually come together and bounce back from, like, that game 3 to find a 3-2 win against G2, that is really, really impressive. And definitely something they can build off of as they run throughout the rest of the season finals.
I agree with that. They were definitely the team that would in. They won 3 games against BDS while losing the series 2-0. You know, like, they were 10k ahead so often and then managed to lose the games. I do want to come back to if the drafts were more even point, Broxah, because I think it's slightly unfair on MDK. And I don't think this was your intent. But I think sometimes we can sit in this, like, ivory tower of, we understand how the draft should have gone at the time because we, like, retrospectively seen it. And even in the moment, you'd be like, oh, the Jax should have been picked instead of the Aurelia. This would have been better. But, like, G2 had what they thought was good. And MDK just beat them with what they thought was good. So the credit has to go to MDK. And you did give MDK credit. I'm not trying to say that you didn't say that. I think the idea that we do this sometimes, it's a little revisionist, right? We go back and we're like, if G2 hadn't tried to put the Pyke mid in 2019 against FPX, they could have won that series. If Fnatic had banned out Yumi a couple of years ago at Worlds, they maybe would have got through that series. If against top esports, we hadn't had the monologue by Shocks from Fnatic, you know, we would have got through that series. And it's like, maybe, but in the end, all you can do is play what's on the day, right? Like, and MDK played better on the day. Their ideas around the draft were better on the day. And even if G2 perhaps would win 8 out of 10 times, 7 out of 10 times, MDK won. So they get to go through and face Fnatic, which is going to be a great series, I'm sure. How do we feel that series is going to go? Because we can do it prospectively. When we do it retrospectively, you know, that's, you know, but prospectively, what are we thinking? Fnatic 3-0? That's what I'm thinking.
I first want to say it's funny being on the other side, you know, because when you're a player, it always is so annoying when people point out all the errors you make in the draft and whatnot. Because, like you said, obviously there's a lot of things to take into account. But that's also one of the beauties of having the analyst approach. You have to find all these things you can pinpoint.
Oh yeah.
But
and I want to stress, I'm not saying you did anything wrong.
I
was just trying to like
MDK did have a lot of positives. Obviously, that needs to be mentioned as well. We'll see how they look in the next series. I mean, that's when we see whether they're a real deal. Now for sure. But anyways, to answer your question, well, G2 is playing. You said G2 Fnatic. They're playing GX next, no?
No, I said Fnatic MDK.
Fnatic MDK. Sorry.
That was my intent. I may have said G2 Fnatic. I've said it so many times over the years. I apologize if I did.
I don't even know what
Fnatic
MDK.
Anymore. What are we thinking?
I think. I mean, it's hard. It's a hard one to predict, and it again probably in a similar way is really gonna depend on who's the most prepared and who shows up on the day. If we see the level of play, drafting, synergy, and everything that we saw this last weekend, I honestly don't know. It's like part of me wants to say MDK, but I'm still not sure if I can fully give it to them. Maybe more realistically, it's like 60-40 for Fnatic. I think Fnatic have been pretty incredible in team fights, but MDK was also able to show up in massive fashion in that regard versus G2. I think the worry that I have for MDK is now they've shown their hand a little bit in terms of the extreme marksman focus, and especially Myrven.
Yeah.
Fnatic can prepare for really well now, and I think if they coming into the series can come up with strategies that ensures that Oscar is able to deal with Myrven in the 1v1, that alone is going to make a huge difference in that series and will give Fnatic a relatively big upper hand. Because in the past, when MDK looked at their best, like in the winter split this year, for example, Myrven was smurfing on people on all these unique picks. Now it's happening again. So logic tells me that if you can shut this boy down, all of a sudden you have the advantage and you're more likely to win the series.
I was actually going to bring that up as like, if you're an MDK fan, I think it was really cool that they went into the time chamber for 3 weeks and came out with some unique strats. And because they won, they do have a bonus week off.
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps or hurts them, because I saw a screenshot that Oscar and Broken Blade are spamming like Smolder top, Corky top, and some of the 80s that Merlin were playing, or was playing in this last series. And I'm really interested how that changes the meta. One thing I will say, there was such an emphasis on marksman for MDK, and I feel like MDK, like they had a couple interesting picks to support them. One being the Morg Galio comp they ran. Now, I will say, I'm a Morgana enjoyer, even if that champion is like only good for 2 buttons. I don't think it's good into like the comps that G2 are throwing at it, just because Kennen, for me, murks that champion. Like there should be no way that Morgana can deal with Kennen. However, they also had a lot of Braum with a lot of these marksman comps, and I think that that's honestly one of the key linchpins to like switching this up, because with G2 running dive the entire time, you're playing Braum with 2 or 3 marksmen every game. That is really tough to get through. And I think that if Fnatic's going to do their homework, I would really think about splitting up that champion or not blinding, Rel every game or Leona every game to actually open up these Braum picks. I think that's step one. And then I'm really curious like how the meta would switch if we actually see some of these picks contested on the Fnatic side. Like what if we get a Corki versus Smolder top game? How does that affect the priority on everything else? If these champions are being threatened as flexes, and like what are these like other answers that we see? Because I feel like for MDK, I don't favor them as a team off the bat, so I just kind of want them to keep cooking, especially given who their top laner is. I mean, he was known for cooking when he came into the league, so I feel like the wonkier things get, the more MDK gets to play on their battlefield, and that could be good for them. So I'm wondering what are the curveballs they come up with in the week off, because I expect them to have more. And that said, I still have Fnatic, but I'll give MDK at least one game, and we'll see if they're able to earn more.
Okay. This week in the LEC, we have G2 versus Giant X and BDS versus SK. We don't have to talk about them too much, like less important teams, I guess, although with G2 being down there, I guess it's slightly more important. But do we have any hot takes around those series, guys?
Does BDS have a chance? I feels weird saying that against SK. I still very much favor SK, though, going into that match.
You favor SK?
I do.
Why?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
BDS has an identity crisis, and a lot of that revolves around Adam. I know that when Irrelevant's champ pool has been narrowed up a bit, I feel like that's when SK has been, I'd say, a wee bit exposed. But I really favor Irrelevant, and I feel like SK, like, for me, they've had higher peaks than BDS throughout the year. And I think that going back to the drawing board could have served them a bit of a benefit, having the bonus week off. I feel like they needed some more of the time. But I think SK's bot lane peaked higher. I feel like Irrelevant's stronger. And I think SK can get it done.
I think this is revisionist history. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
But if you look at like peak over a split, BDS have been third in every single split. I think right now they're struggling. I think SK have had like 1 or 2 games here or there where maybe they were slightly better than BDS in terms of like comparison. But,
like opening of the split was probably it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think the problem, I think didn't even like, if we look at the end of summer season, it was BDS and SK at 8-1 together. So even SK like in this split peaked at the same level that BDS peaked if you look at like the 9-game sample size, right?
Yep.
I could see you saying you think SK will win because of the BDS and identity crisis. I can understand that. I think if BDS don't revert to ice on a carry front to back, I can definitely see SK winning. I think it's unfair to BDS to say that SK have peaked higher than them, like at least consistently across the year, because BDS have consistently been our third best team. I don't think they look like it right now. I think the 3 best teams are MDK, Fnatic, and G2.
Yeah.
But BDS have consistently shown us in playoffs that they can make it further than SK.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're like
sure.
being unfair to BDS. So it's just like I disagree with your point. So I had to tell you that
for sure
you're wrong.
All right, ambassador at BDS.
Oh, that's true. No.
Got him.
I was hoping it wouldn't come out.
Get the spy out of here.
Yeah, I hope that SK's bot lane, though, can at least play better, because I was disappointed in them in playoffs when they did have a really good regular season. And I will say, like, the peak, obviously, with SK with this iteration of the roster, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So I do think that, I mean, it is kind of interesting to see. I feel like, at least with how each of these teams built, it's kind of similar. Like with the import bot lanes, I'm wondering who can outperform who in the end. I for whatever reason, though, I give the nod to Irrelevant. And I feel like Niski can hopefully pull something off for playoffs. I know that hasn't been, at least when, like, Niski's kind of defeated that narrative over the past few years with, his time in Mad Lions. But I hope that we can see Niski at his best, because I appreciate Creative League, and he always tries to bring it.
I think the series is interesting because you could name numerous win conditions and positives and negatives of both teams, but what is also making me a BDS believer is that I literally can't remember the last time that I had faith in SK in playoffs and they did well. Like, I don't know what's up with them, but literally no matter the year, like in the last 5+ years, whenever playoffs come around, no matter how they look in the regular season, it's just not looking good, and they just get stomped by all sorts of different teams. And I do think they've definitely gotten a big upgrade in the bot lane. I mean, that's not even a discussion, and Irrelevant continues to be one of the best top laners in the league. But as of right now, history tells me that BDS is going to level up and dunk on them one way or the other. But with that being said, I would love to see SK proving me wrong. I would love to see them stomping BDS, because that would give us some very interesting conversations next week.
Yeah. On the other side of the bracket, G2 beat Giant X. We all agree on that?
Yeah.
Even on current form? Yeah.
Imagine if they didn't, though. That would
Yeah.
be pretty spicy. I mean, I know G2.
You know what the problem is if they don't?
They're still going to make
Fucking
it to
Worlds
Worlds.
qualification, Broxah. It's Worlds qualification issues
They're
again.
still going to
Fucking
make it.
hate
I'm
it.
aware of it, but at the same time, it would be pretty interesting to see GX beating them. Like, can you imagine the miracle run if they take out G2 and make it to the final or something crazy like that? Like, that would really spice up the storylines.
Yeah. It would be really funny, because then you'd have Giant X, let's say Fnatic beat MDK, Giant X, Fnatic, and G2, who got knocked out in 6th place in our season finals, going to Worlds.
Oh.
It's the MDK situation from last year before, where you don't need to win a series to make it to Worlds because we had 4 seeds.
Yeah.
That was the year before, I want to say. Anyway, I can't remember exactly when it was. We had a year when MDK lost both their series and still made it to Worlds.
That was an interesting
because we had an
timeline
extra
for
season
sure.
that was given to us. Yeah. But the whole
You're getting
the
so
amount of
tilted,
times this
love
weekend
it.
I saw, why is LEC happening? Didn't G2 just win LEC? And it just gets on my nerves. Gets on my nerves. But
I mean,
sorry, yeah,
for whatever reason, LCS changed their formats that you only have to win one best of 5 to make Worlds if you have a bye, which I hate. I like this season finals format a lot better, where they put the 2 lower teams with 1 life instead of 2.
I like the season
stronger.
finals format. I think the format
Yeah,
is
I do
good.
too.
I'm still not sold on a team qualifying to Worlds just because they win 3 regular season, 3 splits. I just like, it irks me. I think if you just get rid of summer, or you get rid of summer playoffs and make summer into season finals, mwah. The winner of the first split can go to whatever the first tournament is. The winner of, I've said this so many times on this podcast. Winner of the second split could go to MSI. The winner of the third split, or the top 3 teams, can go to Worlds. There you go. Bob's your uncle. Easy answer. Hopefully it will change next year. That's an English expression. It's probably not. It doesn't
You
carry
make
over.
it sound so easy.
Yeah.
Just like that?
Well, just
really?
just like that. The problem was, like, this year we didn't have an extra tournament. Next year we do.
Yeah.
Like, I still don't know why we have a summer playoffs into a season finals. Anyway, maybe we just wanted to spread it out more. Maybe that's why. Maybe we needed 4 weeks of extra competition. I'm not involved in any of these meetings. I'm just here to complain about and pick up the zeitgeist of the audience. And I saw a lot of people being like, why on earth is this happening? How do people qualify, etc.? Just don't have championship points. Anyway, LCS. We missed last week, which means we missed what was probably the best LCS series of summer. C9 versus TL.
Yeah.
Cubby, do you want to hit us up with the hot goss? I don't know what you'd hit us up with. Hit us up with information. That's the one.
It was good.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good series. Like, I feel like both teams played decently. It was a pretty high level of play. But TL ended up being unmatched. They had a undefeated series score when it comes to the split, and it really feels like right now that TL, no one is coming close to just matching how they play the map.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts from minute 0. And I think one of the things, there are a couple reads, because I've really been thinking about why TL so far ahead and some of the things that other teams just haven't adopted yet, the meta. And this goes globally, by the way. This isn't just for LCS teams. I feel like some of the science that TL has is really good. One is they will shift bot lane mid very early in the game so that they can contest second grubs, and then have APA be able to also contest it with a TP in bot lane. If a team does not match this, then oftentimes the solution is that you'll leave your bot laner bot, or they'll come. So you either get a 5-man scenario where APA is now in a lane all by himself, or if the enemy bot laner goes, APA has a level or 2 up on the opponent, and he can shove for free and still join the fight. I've seen TL consistently do this. I I feel like they're the ones that are getting APA into a side earliest in the game. And I don't know why other teams aren't matching. Like, it makes a lot of sense, especially with the champs that he's playing, like Corki, Tristana, Ziggs. They wave clear so fast, and they're so safe in the side lane too. It's really hard to deal with them. And so then, like, you get these mid games where TL are coming in with a big advantage. Core is able to be more active, like playing out of mid. And that, like, they're lane swapping the best when they do decide to lane swap. I mean, I really think that TL has things down to a science, and they're playing the map low on numbers better than anyone else, because I feel like they're just consistently getting 3 lanes. And other teams did not adapt to this, and I'm really struggling to see why, because for me, like, the science behind what I laid out is pretty obvious that, like, that's an advantage, especially when you think of APA's pool.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think it's one of those interesting plays where often you'll see AD support go top, and then top laner will switch down off like a pushed out wave. And the idea with APA moving is you have to play around teleport timers a little bit more, because often the mid laners will TP back on like first component spike, right? So you push out the wave. It's much easier for the opposition to get that wave back under your tower, and then you'll TP back out, so you won't have TP back up for second grubs. But I like the way TL do it. I think it's a really smart play if you're willing to sack some time for core JJs to come to mid to get the push out, so then APA can get back into the lane without having to burn that initial TP. And I think that's something like Spawn has talked about a lot with TL, is Impact and core JJ. The knowledge that these two players have throughout the entirety of the game, and the ability to read map states and like understand from the start of the game to the end of the game, depending on like who is taking control at that time, what the team needs to do and how to best allocate resources on the map, is unmatched in NA, and probably currently unmatched in the EU as well. I'd say if G2 were playing better, I think they can do that as well. But in G2's current form, I think TL are probably the best Western team at understanding allocation of resources and understanding how to maximize profitability, I guess, on the map.
I'm definitely glad we're talking so much about the macro and approach, because, I mean, Spawn is one thing. He's an incredible coach, and in my mind, without fully knowing even what the others are bringing to the table, to be honest, he almost must be the best coach in the league right now, from talking to him, hearing about him within Team Liquid, and I think everything he brings to the table, not only when it comes to being a League of Legends expert, but in terms of how he approaches the entire league program is just so good. But I think Impact and Core is also a big discussion, because in my opinion, one of the biggest mistakes Team Liquid ever made was letting Impact go going into the 21 season. Because literally no matter who you replace the guy with, you're not going to find anyone as impactful in terms of what he brings to the table with his consistency and his shot calling and leadership, his ability to play amazing and match literally any top laner in the entire world, even at international competition. Like, you just know that Impact is always going to be stable. And it's not only in official games, by the way, he's the same in scrims. One of the few players that just always brings the exact same type of consistency. And I think that alone has made such a huge impact for Team Liquid. I could go on and on about Core and how smart he is as well, but ultimately I think Team Liquid changing the approach and finding incredible academy players and pairing that with these two absolute superstars that were part of the incredible Team Liquid run in 2019 is it's just leveled them up so massively. And I think the beauty of it is also that if you have people that are that experienced and with so much knowledge, it literally doesn't matter where they obtained that knowledge, because the way League of Legends is played in mid and late game is the exact same now as it was 8 years ago or whatever. Like, at least ever since I started as a pro player in 2017, it's the same way of thinking. So early game changes, but the basic rules and the fundamentals of the game are the same, and them being able to master it, being so disciplined in the way they approach it, is very, very respectable. And I think being in this position where, sure, they can play really aggressive and force fights, but if the game is even, as a viewer, I usually have the feeling that means Team Liquid is going to win. And giving me that kind of confidence in them from a decision-making and macro point of view is crazy, because I don't have that feeling with any team in Europe right now.
Yeah, shout out to Impact, is probably going to be the MVP of the split. And also, props to TL, because like APA and Yawn, they were fans obviously calling for their heads. Like, they didn't find the players in their academy system that were the best at the moment, but they did find the two people that they felt like would be the best with time, and they gave them that time. And that's really, really respectable, because we've seen a lot of NA teams not do that, and it's paid off tenfold for them this year. Like, that team is playing incredible. They really are.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think we saw, and again, this is like a week and a half ago still, but APA did have some failures at the start of that C9 series. There's a few times he was overeager to face check bushes, and all of C9 were waiting around the corner for him. So there's definitely still stuff for TL to work on. But they, to me, seem like the unchallenged team in the LCS. I mean, they went undefeated, right? So even if a team gets close to beating them, the expectation is that TL should be winning this split. C9 and FlyQuest, on the other hand, I think, having watched the series between C9 and TL, and then this weekend between C9 and FlyQuest, C9 are probably the better team fighters of the league in terms of like individual micro mechanics. Like micro mechanics is a dumb way of saying it, but mechanically, I think these players are probably the best in their roles at the league. However, their understanding of how to play the map and how to move around the map, I think, is lacking compared to like a TL. Would you agree with that, Cubby?
Yeah, sometimes I feel like there's just some desync still with C9 and like Thanatos. And also, I don't think Labber's been having his best back half of the split. I felt like he was really strong in like the early split when it was full clear meta. I don't think he's been bad by any means, but still, I think there's like a little bit of desync on the top side. For me, with C9, it just feels like their carries are just really solid. Like, Berserker's back in form. Jojo has moments of, grief, but I would take that with Jojo. I mean, he's NA humanoid for me, right? You're going to take the good with the bad anytime. I was more so, like, disappointed, though, in FlyQuest with this series, because I feel like FlyQuest has been really strong this year. And, like, they played a decent series against like TL or earlier on. I was hoping that they would continue to scale, but I think Blippo's had a really off split, and this team kind of revolves around Inspired, and I don't see Inspired converting all the team fights. And I thought Masu and Busio were actually having a really, really strong split until like the last 2 weeks, where they've just kind of been, they were bad against Shopify Rebellion, and then were kind of just whatever against C9. So I'm hoping that they can improve for playoffs, because I still feel like they're going to Worlds, but that is the team where if I'm an LCS team, I'm looking towards them, given that they have to win an extra best of 5 to get there, as they don't have the bye, and they look a little bit easier to beat than C9 and TL. I feel like FlyQuest beat themselves a bit more, and like Blippo is, I don't want to say a weakness, but I feel like he can't play all the picks that are meta right now, and I would not be surprised if we see FlyQuest go more tank oriented in the top side and more swap oriented. I feel like that leans on Blippo's strengths in the first place, but he hasn't been as good individually this split for whatever reason. So that's been a bit of a bummer. He was really good last split.
I've been following the matches as well and watching many of them closely. And my question to you would be, which team can actually beat FlyQuest? Like, if they're not going to be third, who's it going to be? Because TL and C9 are clearly 1 and 2.
There's a chasm.
But it's like, who can actually take them down? Because compared to TL and C9, they don't look that impressive. Compared to the rest, they look pretty good. And it feels like they're kind of the BDS of NA right now, the gatekeepers,
Yeah. Notice I say I think they still go to Worlds, but that's the target, on their head. I think we're on the same page. I think the most likely teams are Dig or 100 Thieves. NRG looks really poor, which is sad.
I want to... can I just quickly touch on NRG?
Yeah?
Yes.
So, for anyone who hasn't watched Team Liquid versus NRG, just imagine somebody walking up to a wall and completely slamming their head into it repeatedly. That's the equivalent of watching NRG in that series, in the sense that they were just losing their minds and brute forcing so many crazy fights, and it tilted me into oblivion watching it. Like, I am a Team Liquid ambassador and fan of Team Liquid, but that was an unbelievable way to lose a game. Like, they just made the same mistakes 10 times. Brutal.
Yeah, it's bad. They feel really bad.
Yes.
100 Thieves. They got Tomo
Broxah,
in now.
why'd you have to rub the salt in the wound, huh?
It's tough.
Douglas
It's
watching
really
this
tough.
show right now, and he's thinking, I can't believe Mads Broxah Mikkelsen would Pedersen. I can't remember your surname. Would do that to me. Pedersen, probably.
Oh man.
Right?
Yeah, pretty much. You got it in the end. I mean, I have to say, poor Douglas kind of got bullied in that series, but it is
Yeah,
what it
it
is.
did.
I also think,
Yeah.
just quickly while we're on the NRG topic, I think.
Yeah.
I also hate their name, and their haircuts look
Oh
dumb.
my god. No, I think, to me, and feel free to disagree, but FlyQuest is just a slightly better version of NRG. Because NRG has a glaring weakness of constantly brute forcing fights without, having any bigger thought behind it, and they're very over-aggressive. And in the same way, I think FlyQuest very often seem lost and desynced. And I think there's clear similarities between the two. It's just that FlyQuest not only has a higher individual level, but they're also slightly better as a team. Not to the point of actually being super impressive, but that's the way I would look at it.
I mean, I think FlyQuest are at their best when they're overloading lanes, and I feel like they lean on that too much. So I think that leans into like the forcing. But they are smarter about it, which I'll give Whippo credit for, because I think it's pretty clear that like he has a lot of input there. NRG feels like a dead man walking, which is really sad.
I mean, especially since they play FlyQuest in the first series, right?
I think they're waiting in the.
I actually have the bracket up. So
they do.
You cool if we move on to LCS predictions? Anything else we wanted to hit on the teams before we get into the playoffs?
FlyQuest, because I kind of interrupted.
It's got to be it's got to be Digger 100 Thieves. I'm actually a little bit higher on 100 Thieves right now. Meech was really like a real weak point for them. 100 Thieves bot lane was really struggling, and Tomo stepping in, I feel like gave them a little bit of a honeymoon phase. And Tomo he was a good laner in LCS last split when he was playing with Dignitas. I mean, their whole strat was to dive bot, and Isles and Tomo were good enough to actually be able to execute on this, but Tomo wasn't that good in mid to late game. Covering him in challengers this split, I mean, it's a lower level of play, but he was getting caught out less. So I'm actually hoping we see an improved Tomo, because for me, he's a decent player if he has more consistent like team fights and conversion of leads that he is able to get, because he's good enough to get them. And I think this can actually be a path to victory for 100 Thieves. They just kind of have to hope that they draw the FlyQuest bot lane on a bad day, which does exist for them, as they're a little bit Jekyll and Hyde. So I have a little bit more faith in them than Dignitas. Dignitas really tilts me with how they play, because like so many of their drafts, it's just like 2 or 3 losing lanes and losing jungle, and it's like pray enemy team ints, and then they win. And I don't think that's going to be good enough to beat some of the best teams.
It sounds like G2 this weekend as well.
True.
So, I will say, Tomo we've only seen against Shopify Rebellion and Immortals so far, right? So
yeah, it's weak.
He is a good player, and I agree with you. I do think he fits into that role better than Meech did. But we'll see how effective that change is. This week on LCS, we have Dignitas versus 100 Thieves. So it is only going to be one of those teams beating FlyQuest, because the other one is going to get knocked down into the losers bracket immediately. And then FlyQuest NRG. What are our thoughts?
FlyQuest and 100 Thieves in a close one.
Yeah.
But I still don't see unless the tape tells us something different, I'm still expecting it to be like TLC9 FlyQuest in some order to go to Worlds.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I like, in a way, LCS has been interesting this year, but also there's a chasm between the top 3 and the rest, as Broxah pointed out. It's really obvious. It's like even all the plebs don't watch all the gameplay. Like, it's really obvious for everyone,
So here's the question. Here's the thing. Would you rather be LEC, that is a 0-team region where it seems like we have no fucking clue who's going to win, right? Or LCS, where the result is basically a foregone conclusion, right? Like,
give me the chaos.
You want the chaos?
I want to be LEC.
Okay.
I want upsets. If the LCS bracket has upsets, like we recorded a Hotline League last night. I was like, that's the best thing that can happen for this playoffs because everyone thinks it's a foregone conclusion. So like, if you have an upset like MDK over G2, I mean, that makes playoffs way more exciting for everyone.
Part is that
or everyone thinks your region is fucking crap because the team that won
That's
all three.
fine.
I mean, it is fine, but it's also kind of demoralizing for everyone to be like, we're just gonna get shit on at Worlds. Well, there's no way any of our teams can be good at Worlds. And I'm just trying to enjoy season finals. I'm just trying to have fun casting a great best of 5 where Corki Top did 1,217 damage per minute in a game. The highest ever Corki has done in the LEC. But we can't enjoy it because G2 were the team that lost. Anyway, sorry.
Well, you know what? You know what, Medic? We've never sent anyone to World's Finals. Everyone always thinks NA is going to lose, so it's nothing different for us.
I have
Give me
to
the
say,
chaos.
you really sounded like an NA fan there for a moment from my experience playing in that region. It was kind of depressing to witness, I'm not going to lie.
I have more faith this year. I really do. But, you know, if people don't have faith, there's no change, so it's fine.
I've been in situations as a player so many times where everybody had lost faith in our team. And we still, you know, made it out of groups in 2017 with Fnatic, or we made it to the World Final in 2018. Like, I think so many years the West has had very low expectations going into Worlds, but sometimes, you know, something crazy happens, or like everything on the team clicks. And I also wouldn't be too worried about G2 losing this one series. In fact, I think it's about time that somebody actually tested them and helped them improve. Because G2 just being able to win every game, no matter if they play good or bad, I think has been a part of why they aren't able to play even cleaner and be more impressive. So hopefully this gives them an additional push. And yeah, I mean, 0-team region, they're probably going to win the split anyways, one way or the other, right? Like,
yeah. Yep. I have been struggling with that a little bit. Generally, the idea that we can still have fun watching League of Legends that isn't optimal when a lot of the vocal community recently has been LEC is bad, the quality of the games are bad, etc. Right, and it's a personal struggle because I had a lot of fun watching MDK G2, and then I made the mistake of looking at Reddit for a second, and they were all like, "Oh my god, this is the worst. We can't have any fun."
But I think everybody who says that did not watch League of Legends in like 2016, 17, whatever, when it was really slow meta with lane swaps and everybody were playing perfect and there was like 0 kills at 10-15 minutes every game. Like, it was unbelievably boring because everybody were trying so hard to be perfect. And then we had the shake-up in 2018 where it became the LPL style with crazy aggression and fights and whatnot. And ultimately, I personally really don't care if somebody plays perfect League of Legends or not. Like, it literally doesn't matter. In fact, if it's too perfect, it gets on the boring side for me. Like, sure, I can enjoy some great League of Legends, but I think when they just, you know, roll it out and go ham in their spice, like, that should be appreciated. And I think often we, both as fans, but also as League of Legends players, tend to forget that mistakes are natural, and if you watch LCK and LPL, they also make countless mistakes. If you watch any of the World Final from any of the previous years, there's so many unbelievably and silly mistakes. And at the end of the day, we should just, you know, try to have fun and celebrate the good moments and leave it at that. Like, who cares if the game is perfect?
I don't know if I've gone on this rant before or not on this show, but I feel like that's like a big difference between gaming fans and like sports fans. I love nothing more than when watching sports when two teams get down in the mud and have an absolute shit show of a game. It's so much fun to watch people that are the best at their craft in the world play like shit, and then you don't know what's going to happen on either side. And then when it comes to gaming, it's like, oh my god, how dare they grace us with this terrible gameplay on our screens, you know? Like, it's so fun watching a football game be terrible. There's nothing better than that. It's so entertaining. And I don't get like why everyone just goes up in arms. Like, can't we just enjoy the fact that it's bad? Like, I feel like the only example I can even think of this was like T1 DRX were allowed to think that it was cool because Guma's stealing Varus Q, Baron with Varus Qs, but hey, that's higher damage than Smite, so it's actually like, you know, perfect gameplay. I don't give a shit. I don't know. I feel like it's fun.
I really think it's just a perspective thing, right? Because
it is.
When you watch that in a world final, when it's the intensity and everyone's like, oh my god, this is incredible.
Yes.
Like, it feels really good because you're like, oh, two teams battling it out. But then when you've been told the LEC is bad, and you've been told the quality of the gameplay is bad, you're looking at it or from that bad lens, right? You've got the tinted glasses on that say, oh, if someone makes a mistake, it's bad, rather than if someone makes a mistake, maybe they were outplayed or whatever. Anyway, moving on from that, speaking about mistakes, AD carry meta, what the fuck? What have you done, freak? Huh? Just because you're an AD yourself? This is an AD carry in every single lane, and LEC's stuck on it. LCS is going to be on 14-16 for the playoffs, which has got a couple of changes, I believe. LPL just started their playoffs, and I think they're on 14-15 with Aurora enabled, so they're probably going to have a lot of AD carries as well. How do we fix this, apart from just nerfing fucking AD carries, you know?
Guys, Azir got 3 armor and Orianna got buffed. It's dig season finally for LCS. I forgot about
Jensen's just gonna shit on everyone.
It's Jensen season, baby. Oh. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like we've just beaten a dead horse the entire season about people not liking AD meta. But I also will say, I feel like Riot should let it exist for the rest of the season and then just like nerf it for Worlds. Like, the fact that LCS plays on 14-16 and it shifts that much is pretty brutal, actually. Like, I'd be a bit tilted if I'm LCS playing on that patch instead of the other ones because of how much it actually warps the game based on everything else.
I get that, but I would be so fucking mad if I didn't make Worlds because it was an AD meta, and then Worlds is Mages mid again, and it's like Azir and Ryze and whatever. Like,
that's fun. Medic, you can just watch the teams that made it because it was AD meta get fucking rinsed by the mages at Worlds.
And this is a problem, right? Because we have had AD meta for such a long time, and you even see like MDK utilized it really well. You're playing to your win cons. There's a thing in Magic at the moment. There's a card called Nadu, he's just giga broken, right? And a lot of people have been like, oh, I'm not going to play Nadu because it's too broken. It's too easy to win. It's like, no. It's a fucking competitive game. Like, you play what wins you the game. I have no problems with teams playing AD meta to win the game. I do have a problem with if you win through AD meta and then the meta shifts entirely for Worlds. How fair is that on everyone else? And the argument can be made, actually it is fair because you won on a patch and then you're playing on a different patch. That's just how League of Legends is. But I still think changing it drastically for Worlds would be a mistake. Even though I hate AD meta.
I mean, they're already changing it drastically, so...
Well, 14-16 is like semi-change? Is it drastic?
Azir's back.
Yeah,
Azir got 3 armor. He's getting played.
Yeah, Azir is back. Lucian got slightly nerfed. There's a nerf to Corki and nerf to D-Blade and a nerf to Blade of the Ruined King.
Yeah, the D-Blade nerf's brutal.
Yeah, 20 health and 0.5%. Yeah, it is. Okay. Yeah, maybe they are nerfing it drastically. I looked at those changes and I thought maybe it's not huge, but it might actually just be huge.
I think Corki gets played, but that, like, we are going to see Corki probably go up, and then I think a lot of ADs will drop off.
It feels like they're just slowly deleting them from solo lanes. I think in an ideal world, this is obviously very hard to achieve from a balancing point of view, but you would have flexibility so that you can play AD carries if you want, and, you know, we see a lot of different drafts still. But yeah, again, that might not be so realistic. It's just that I gotta be honest, like, part of me is worried that Worlds is just gonna be Orianna Azir every game, because that sounds, to me, very boring. But if you have Orianna Azir, but you also have some marksmen, and you have some melee champions, you have a bunch of different things, I think that's fair and reasonable. It's just that if we only push ourselves in one direction, where, you know, obviously right now marksmen have been completely broken in both pro play and solo queue for a while, that's too much. So if we can find a middle ground, that would be very preferred. And yeah, I don't know, whenever I think of changes going into Worlds, I always remember, I think it was 2016 with the Juggernaut meta.
Juggernaut.
Oh no.
And then Ardent meta.
Yeah.
Same 3 champs ban,
right, where
every
big
game.
Changes are coming in before Worlds, and then it just makes the game so strange randomly. Where I would, you know, actually I preferred the way it was before that happened. So sure, marksman changes are fine, but just a bit worried about how exactly it's done. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, they've been explicit in saying there's never going to be a Juggernaut patch again to that degree. Like, because that was Darius, Mordekaiser, Gangplank. I think there was one more.
They were banned every game.
They all got changed.
Skarner I remember who was it? Cacao did like less than 1k damage and Skarner in a game.
Yeah.
That was fun.
And that was when
he was going to be
Mord
really broken.
a dragon with him.
I mean,
there was one Mord game played, and it won.
Now, because obviously now, if something is like really broken, they're a little bit quicker at pulling the trigger on hot fixing it. Like I know when Smolder came out, it was completely and utterly broken. It was ridiculous. But then they quickly hot fixed it for pro play for like, one patch, and then things eventually evened out and became more balanced. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
I wish that there were longer patch cycles to innovate within the patch, and I have faith that Worlds will still provide some of that.
4 weeks.
Yes.
Give me 12
Please.
patches a year. I think it's enough to keep people still interested. Well, I think there's going to be 2 champs released this year, so you don't need a patch every 2 weeks for champs. It covers a season or a split. Like, you could have 4 weeks of regular season in winter, and then 4 weeks of playoffs, and you get 1 patch in the middle. Isn't that nice? I know they don't patch around esports schedules anymore, or at least it's not like at the top of their minds. It's more of like a general gameplay patch. But I think 4 weeks could work. And what I love in games like StarCraft and in games like Smash and like all of those games is you'll have a meta that has been defined for like almost years at times, and then someone will come in and be like, actually, if you 3 racks, you can do this, or actually, if you Colossus Rush, you can do this. I just made those 2 up. I don't follow StarCraft closely enough to know the actual strats, but
I mean, some of my favorite worlds were or tournaments were when you have innovation within it. Like
Vox Tigers with the MF support. That's a great example of that, right?
CLG at MSI when they were playing the range supports and made it to finals.
Sure.
Victor emerging as the Aatrox answer in season 8.
I mean, even
I mean
the 2018 finals that I played, the entire tournament had been just carries and super aggressive champions, and then all of a sudden IG starts locking in tanks in the final and completely changed the meta, right? Like I think, like you're saying, being able to see strategies change and create a new meta, and then create a new meta, so that meta within a patch makes things so exciting. So and I think like even in solo queue it would be cool to have more opportunity to experiment and create new strategies, because now if you come up with something really cool for a specific patch, by the time you've actually created that strategy, it might get nerfed like a week later. It happens so quickly.
It does. As a final note before we close off for the day, Riot have just announced global emotes, which are I'll put a link in the chat so everyone can have a look if they want. Basically, it's team emotes for all the tier 1 teams. They say they are being custom emotes designed by all the pro teams competing in tier 1 on LoL esports this year. Starting on August 13th, they'll be on PBE. They'll be officially available on August 27th. And each emote is 350 RP with 30% of the gross revenue going directly to the team that helped design it. Some of these look giga generic. I'm going to be honest. I saw a few that are just like, Gams is just 2 gloved hands doing this.
How'd you know that was Gams?
Because it says Gam on a little yellow ribbon underneath it.
The Vitality one's cool. Like they actually gave him the B.
Vitality is a B. Mad Lion's Koi is Aurelian Soul, which I really don't understand what the reference is there.
The Dig Baron throw is funny.
Yeah, there's a few that I think are cool and feel like stylized around the team. And then there's some that's just like, this is just a picture of Rakan. And I have no idea what team this is. Most of them have like a logo. Well, I say most. Some of them have like a logo on. And some of them
Rakan's
don't.
mewing too.
The G2 one doesn't have a logo. But I know it's G... Oh no, it has their helmet. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
Who's Mundo with a thumbs up?
That is Giant X, I want to say.
How do you know that?
Because there's a Twitter from Max, the head of something in Riot, like Max Peter Schmidt. What's his director, League of Legends esports EMEA? Too high up for me to know his actual job title. He put a link up with every team's individual one.
I mean, Rogue gets like their actual icon in the game.
I think that's
you get Mundo thumbs up.
Part. Like Rogue literally gets their actual like avatar from their logo as an emote in the game, and then certain others have like their logo so small on like a generic emote that you can barely even notice it.
Yeah. It's a weird one where I like some of the references. Like the Heretics is a duck because of Flackhead's duck. I think that's really cool, right? MDK, no fucking clue why it's Aurelion Soul. I really don't know why that's Aurelion Soul. Carmine Court, I don't know why it's a successful surrender vote held up by a Jinx. That also seems weird to me. But yeah, I think they're cool.
Well, they did. K-Corp did FF2 splits this year, so maybe that's why.
I'm glad you said it, not me.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of them seem a little bit like they've had a bit less work. Some of them seem like they had more work. Overall, I think it's a good direction for Riot to move in, as they talked about like trying to monetize more for teams and spread that pot around. I will say 350 RP emotes isn't going to get a huge amount of money to the teams, right? Like if you sell... What is
30% cut?
Yeah, you get a 30% cut, so that's 100 RP, say €1 per one sold.
Someone else did the math, and you need to sell pretty much 4 emotes to make $3.
Okay. So yeah,
and that's not enough.
It seems like a good step forward, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of this sort of thing from Riot. If this is all it is, I'm a little disappointed in the monetization, right?
I mean, I have so much beef with this, honestly, from Riot, because like I feel like all this would have been stuff like they were prepping to cook into Ren, the Riot Esports Network, so like their own streaming platform, and then like this is stuff that should have been done like 10 years ago, for real. I mean, if we're being honest, and I've talked to like teams, because like keep in mind I cast tier 2, right? We have orgs hop in and out of our leagues or just OQs, and I've had teams tell me like, hey, we have an R6 team now and not a league team because we get stickers in the game as a tier 2 team. This really matters for orgs, especially lower down the chain, and this doesn't move the needle for tier 1s. And also, it's just late. Like, where was this when franchising started? Where was this when the league started? Because it feels like such a no-brainer that other games have picked up on. And Riot's whole thing is like, oh, we're cooking everything into Ren. It's going to be great. And then they kill the project, and then they release this afterwards. Like, is it a good idea? Yes. Am I complaining about this? No. But am I complaining it when it comes in? Yes. Because this is so easy to do.
Yeah.
It's so easy to do. Like, with team logos, like, where's access to team logos? Like, why is it only the teams that get to make worlds, you know? I don't know.
The awkward part of the timing is also that, I mean, of course it is coming because Worlds is starting soon, but some of the teams...
They're going to be around next year.
Some of the teams have already been knocked out. Some of the organizations might not even be here next year.
There are changes,
The timing is a little bit unfortunate.
Oh wait, can we work out which LCS teams aren't going to be here next year? But if they have
where's the Immortals logo?
Is there an Immortals one? Is there Immortals? Wait, where's NA?
Who even is like the jungle on fire? Like, I don't know that one. I feel like Cloud9 is the Clown.
Cloud9 is question mark. There might be an alphabetical order.
Have you noticed their Kali with 100 Thieves? What's up with that?
Yeah, that's such a that's an emote that you design, and it's like, okay, you're getting this one, right? Like, and then meanwhile, like KT gets what, like a fucking alpaca?
Who's the surrendering Teemo?
I mean, I actually am jealous that I can't get the FF flag. That's actually Immortals. They're leaving the league.
I mean, it might be, because isn't Shopify the set? Doesn't it have the Shopify logo around?
Yeah, they have the logo on.
But there should be a logo on Teemo.
You guys can look them up.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, these are so random.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know.
Some of them feel like weird. Some of them feel good. It might also be, and like, not to put the blame on Riot, sometimes even when teams are told they can do a collaboration like this, they don't put the resources in to design their own emotes.
That's true.
So Riot might have just been like,
fair.
we'll give you something generic because you haven't done anything, right? We don't know where the blame lies there on which ones are more generic or not.
Dude, the FPX one is awesome, that Phoenix.
Oh, that Phoenix is dope.
I know you're copping that one, Medic.
Yeah,
that's
100%.
Pretty damn cool.
Big fan.
Yeah.
Big fan. Anyway, that's it from us for the jungle this week. Make sure you leave your comments down below on things you want us to discuss, things you don't want us to discuss, and anything in between. We'll be here again next week. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you then.